Yeah, again, thank you all for taking some time. We say this in most of the sessions here. We understand and acknowledge the time investment. It is just an hour for today, but again, nonetheless, we understand there's so many fires and so much fun we get to have in the field. So thank you all for taking this step to look forward, to not necessarily to reinvent, but to bolster your already largely successful practices. And hopefully we have a couple tidbits along the way here. It's not very in depth, it's not very technical. I consider these sessions to be, as most webinars, more of a hey, here's an idea. So we'll carry on in that kind of and that kind of messaging here throughout. I am James, or am I here? Ta-da! So I'm James Holborn. My counterpart, Mike Davies here. So we take care of the North American market for what concerns Sherweb and modern work sales. Mike's specialization is around the security or cybersecurity. Part of what we get to do in the Microsoft space. And on my side, it's more around the collaboration, teams, calling, meetings, and all the togetherness essentially that we can bring. That being said, we will jump right in. A couple of the usual questions because we will still get one in the chat. I'll put $5 on it if I was a betting man, but the deck will be shared. This is being recorded. It is being recorded, confirmed. And you'll get a copy of this. We do have a resources section at the back end of the deck here that'll provide some enlightening or useful links to access various collateral, readings, resources, etc. This is designed to be an interactive session. I do love the sound of my own voice, as many of you know. Mike has a lot to share and could easily fill the hour here as well. What is more important than us listening to each other, and Mike and I do get to brainstorm often enough here, is you getting value from this. So throw your questions in the chat. I do believe we can unmute, so you can throw your questions in the chat. You could also reach out to your account managers, your point of contacts here at Sherweb, and we can have a sidebar meeting with you following up, whether it be more technical, more of a practice build. How do I get my team ready? How do I overcome objections, challenges? What does this mean for me? And so on here. We're here to be a part of your success in whatever form or shape that takes. So, without wasting too much time, this is what we have in store for today. Hey, step one, congratulations, everybody. You made it through the first phase here as we do this intro. We'll look at some of the newer releases, the newer notes, the newer topics of interest that has been pushed out from Microsoft in the last month or so.
Yeah, lots of good stuff coming from Ignite that we're going to review.
Some of it really good, some of it room for, or some of it is just presents itself as an opportunity if we think our glass half full. But yeah, lots of changes. It's Microsoft, no one's first rodeo here. They love changes so much that they have changed the name of Copilot a few times in the last X amount of months here. So again, lots of just a few updates, very high levels. Isn't a new segment, so we'll just give you the Cole's notes there and invite you to dig in deeper. We'll take a look at Copilot Agents, Copilot Studio, and even the ability to extend Copilot. We do have a Copilot quota, so 50 is the under/over on that for this session. And finally, wrapping up with more of a Q&A, just essentially revisiting the chat for any questions or comments that have been left. And that's really what we had in mind. So with that, Mike, I'll let you jump into some of the top of mind stuff that's happened to us recently.
All right, great. Let's get into the news and notes and some of the things that were brought up at Ignite. Before we do that, I'm going to ask that we launch the first poll asking what our favorite highlights were from Ignite. I'm not sure if all of you got to attend, but there were a lot of great announcements that came along there, and we're going to review a couple of these now. We can get to that next slide with some of the recaps of the product announcements. We've got Probably the most exciting one that came around that everyone's really excited about was the annual term commitment with monthly billing for Copilot licenses. It was just we I could have had an autoresponder for the number of times that I got asked that question. So I'm very glad that it's now available December 1st, and that's now in market. Uh, Additionally, SharePoint Advanced Management in my being included within a Copilot license. So if buying a Copilot license, you get the SharePoint Advanced Management feature set. Uh, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second here. We've got lots of great offerings in terms of the E5 promotion. So new customers to E5 being 15% off. That's going to be starting in the new year. So January 1st, a 15% off new customer E5. And that can be an uplift to from E3 to E5. So that's great to see. So there's a lot of great stuff that was announced, some kind of new changes. The 15% off Microsoft Copilot for 10 plus seats is continuing. We don't have a deadline on that one. That one's continuing. I know they're going to be continuing that one into the new year. So excited about that as well.
Awesome. And just to give you a quick break here, and I'll fall on the sword and I'll take the potentially not less than ideal news here on point 5. There will be a slight uplift to those customers on annual terms with monthly billing. So do be mindful of this. It takes effect in April, so there is some time. If you have any renewals that you're able to leverage to defer that increase as they get their budget ready for the next fiscal, to move to an annual paid upfront model to help them avoid that 5% uplift whatsoever. So here too, it's as much as we'll say on it for today. There is more information available in the Partner Center announcements, and we'll be sure to say more as this date approaches. But if Mike or myself or your AM here from Sherweb does reach out wanting to speak about renewals, likely we have a strategy or a potential suggestion there to help you and as importantly, your customers navigate that slight difference here coming up.
Yeah, and with that renewal conversation, I'm sure if you attended our last webinar, you would have learned all about Sales Advisor and Lighthouse and how to make that an easier conversation. So pushing forward, we did talk about the SharePoint Advanced Management. So being included within Copilot is great. This is a tool set that's going to help you enable your customers to get ready for Copilot. One of the things that we're all talking about is data governance and security. And this is going to help govern that exact thing. So now when you are getting prepared for Copilot, it comes with the license to have more management over it, whether that's looking at a reporting that can come out of SharePoint now that will show you what's being shared and where it's being shared externally. You can then generate reports like that so that you've got a better idea of who's using your data, who's accessing it. And then you've also got lifecycle management. So I'm sure all of you have a customer or two or all of them that never want to delete data. They have 20 years of data and 15 different versions of their employee handbook. Content lifecycle management can help you govern that for them and kind of prune out the not so useful data that all your customers are storing right now. So this is a great option if you want to learn more about specifically about SharePoint Advanced Management. Reach out to your account manager, and then James and I will get engaged and happily walk through some of the new features.
Yep. I think that's really cool. Just if we kind of zoom out and we look back at the sessions that we had run most previously around Copilot and kind of seeing the forest through the trees, all the potential, the revenue and all the value essentially that we can bring to customers. This is really fun, right? So this is now not so much of a, hey, I need to upsell you, and then we're going to add Copilot, and the business case will make itself over time. But now it's really, hey, we have this built in as part of the new service that we're going to be proposing. So again, slightly less resistance would be a potential outcome there. There's also restricted SharePoint search, so another way to go about it. But ultimately, the advanced management here is a piece that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So,
Yeah,
go
with
ahead.
that, we've got kind of the why do we want to focus on today's topic, and what have we what's gotten us here. So over our webinar series, we've talked about the time that it takes to ingest and deploy Copilot, the number of leaders that are using AI are seeing an incredible return on investment. This is really just an example of how your customers are asking for it and seeing that that there's a return on investment. So that's really where we're kind of sitting today.
And I'd even say, like, this is exactly it. To Mike's point there, it's what we've been preaching. It's what Microsoft largely has been preaching, and Microsoft says a lot of things, and a lot of them are quite accurate and unbiased. But now the proof is actually starting to show in this pudding, right? So it's not just AI will or should help you, and don't worry, just trust me. But we now are a year into this, and we're starting to get some actual feedback. And again, the business case is there for our customers. We hope that you are adopting some of these strategies internally, and you're starting to see these same rewards. Again, the biggest value that we can bring through these sessions is just get in there, try it out, start carving out what that path looks like for you and for your team, so that you know how to better communicate and demonstrate that value to your customers. Right. So some of the different ways, again, we know the Copilot license. There's a little bit of pushback with regards to price. It was just softened thanks to Satya's announcement at Ignite. But again, it is not the license, right? We're getting out of this transactional sale as it was 10 years ago. When we get to SaaS, our pricing compared to any of our competitors, much like your pricing compared to your competitors, is all license based, right? It's all very, very similar. So it's not the 50-cent discount that's going to win us these deals or build that long-term and lasting relationship. It really is the services and how we can go about it. So don't look at Copilot as the proverbial tree here. Really do try and see the forest, where that be through the form of managed services. When we talk about getting the tenant ready for Copilot by enabling and enacting the right security posturing. It could be hand holding, for lack of a better term, in terms of, hey, here's what this AI mythical thing can do for you, and here's where it's really going to return, and here's why it's worth your while. And then finally, from again on the AI services, it could be in question in terms of adoption. It could be in terms of value propping. What are these metrics we're going to look for to quantify success in the long term? So again, do take that zoom out. Do look at Copilot as a greater play. It is far from a transactional. This is something that could essentially be your claim to fame within that customer, as you being that steward of the new revolution, as it were, when it comes to AI embedded in the way we work.
Yeah, looking at the last webinar topic, so really it was focused on Lighthouse and Sales Advisor. So I know Anne-Marie put the links in the chat there for the previous webinars. If you're interested in finding out more, or you missed the how to leverage Microsoft Lighthouse for renewals and licensing, it's a really great tool set that's custom built for MSPs by Microsoft to help govern your entire customer stack. So really, this is where you're going to be able to identify those Copilot opportunities and look at your renewal cycle with a little more clarity.
Yep, and I think even just to add on to that, onto the renewals. So I consume a fair amount of Microsoft content here, so forgive some of my Kool-Aid spilling out of my mouth here. But this is a great time as we have the Q2 or Microsoft's Q3 renewals period. So we see a lot of flux between January and March. Now with NCE licensing and the P2P transfers being enabled, this means that customers could potentially shift between MSPs and you likewise could shift between CSPs. So double down, stay ahead. If there's room to optimize, don't kind of rest on your laurels. And yeah, I did the licensing great last year. Meanwhile, they downsize 10% and they're being overcharged. And by 10% of licensing, they're no longer benefiting from. We'll stay ahead of that. Be honest, be truthful, right? And have that integrity and win your customers' hearts, so to speak, but win their trust and earn and maintain that trust. And renewal time is a great way we can look at that, be more strategic, more focused, and show how targeted and how custom your service and your approach is to that particular customer. We also, through the series of webinars here, we looked at some of the programs available, whether that be through briefings, as well as some of the promotions as well. So the E3 promo is still very much in play at 15% off there. E5 promo coming up in January as well. So we want to make sure you're getting the most out of it. We looked at our partner program, or the Microsoft partner program more so, in terms of IUR licensing and what's becoming available. So again, do circle back. The links are in the chat there, but do circle back. You can use Copilot to summarize potentially the videos if you were so inclined. And then Mike, myself, and our greater team here remain available to dive into any and or all of the topics here. And quite honestly, whatever's ailing you, whatever's paining you, whatever's a challenge or a struggle, our job is to remove barriers and to make this as natural and as native for you as possible. So again, we just for me, the way I see my role at least is really just I want to be a part of your success, and you just kind of tell us how, and we'll do our best to be there. So that's kind of the world that was. When we look forward into what we're going to be diving into today, so just a quick note on agents. There weren't too many responses in the poll. The one that said agents with many exclamation points, that was most definitely not this guy. But as per me, one of the bigger announcements and one of the most interesting parts to come out of Ignite from a software perspective. From then, we'll look at extending Copilot. So what does this mean? So we'll take a quick spin through there. And then the pièce de résistance are really the ultimate value prop in one of my opinions. We'll be looking at Copilot Studio, and we'll call it a wrap. Not too far from there.
We just launched the poll here asking, are you familiar with the differences between what Agent Studio plugins and connectors are? There's a lot of new terminology, some changed names and new functionality there. So we'd love to get an idea of the familiarity of the group, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, and that's essentially like it's real time what we're doing here. So we'll adjust the time allocation in between these topics as we go forward. So thank you for the feedback. Heard of them and don't know the details and we're seeing 60% of the poll answers here. I think that's very indicative of Microsoft doing so much in such a short period of time. So rest assured, you are far, far, far from alone in that proverbial bucket. But we'll try and make some sense of it. Again, we're happy to deep dive into any or all of these on a one-to-one with you. Guess I'll answer the poll question. No, I won't swing it here. Let's
hopefully you've heard of them.
I have heard of them, and I know the details on two, except for the one that you'll be walking us through. No, we're right. Vaguely aware, to say the least. All right. So I'll start off then with Copilot Agents. In a nutshell, and this is really where Microsoft is heading, is that every employee will have their own Copilot, whereas each business process will have an agent. So this is kind of Microsoft's way of viewing it here, and surely the right one. But think of Copilot as my assistant when I start treating my emails, for example, my chats, my meetings, my follow-ups, my planning, etc. And an agent is going to be a lot more of a focused um, action taker. So it's not going to be one agent like a James personal assistant that handles any of our legal questions and RFPs, that does the licensing inquiries, that does demos, that builds quotes and strategic planning. But rather, I would have more so 5 agents to accomplish those 5 particular outcomes, potentially even more, depending how specific I'd like each agent to be. Zooming out a little bit, there are essentially 3 types we'll be looking at here. Sort of retrieval agent, a task. So again, this is, I received this email. Here is my, I want you to summarize the email and provide me some information. Or autonomous, where it can actually send the reply right out to the customer. This could be in the form of chatbots, of mail answering agents, of scheduling, of planning, of financial planning, uh, uh, noticing anomalies if we think of financial transactions, etc. But focus and task-driven AI, largely at an individual or a user level. And we'll look at some of the tenant-wide or the company-wide functions that are available via Copilot coming up in a moment here. So retrieval, this one we can say that the agent will react to a particular trigger. It can go and validate, let's say, within a database and provide information back to me as a user. So for example, I have a Copilot for Copilot, clever guy. So in this Copilot for Copilot, I can ask it virtually anything related to Copilot. It will comb our internal SharePoints, a collection of sites that we have internally, focusing on Copilot. As I'm very close to that 50 Copilot threshold for this session. So I can ask it anything from value propping to the differences between, to licensing, to functions, to prompts, etc., use cases, you name it. So I've built this agent. It is a James agent, strictly for me, based on a knowledge set that I have. So it is simply giving me info, and then I can go and share this with the team, with you all and your customers alike. If we look at tasks, well, now we can actually get something a little bit more, not to say practical. I think the retrieval agent has been an amazing time saver for me. But now we can actually have it book, let's say, a travel plan, for example. So now we can actually have it interpret my instructions or receive my prompt, validate internal knowledge sources, validate if we have it connected to our travel application, and then even go as far as to schedule that. Super high level examples there, but there are so many more. We could think of an HR or a help desk agent as well, where it can go and sift through internal KVs and go as far as to reply to your customer on your behalf, thus decreasing your workload, allowing you to take on more, bigger, and better projects, and getting out of that kind of day-to-day run the business, so to speak. And the last one, so these are incredibly interesting. I have tried to build one. Our IT here is quite stringent, so I will work my way through one. But the dream here is going to be when I receive an email, it will go ahead and analyze or interpret the ask, the request, the question, and then to either reply with give a very valid reply that has been checked. The sources can be cited and shared, relevant links can be shared. It might be, depending on the context, might be able to book us a meeting right out of the gates there, based on, let's say, my availability as a starting point, or share a bookings link with you. So all this is entirely possible. If you think of a small business, let's say for a home care worker, for example, they get a new request. It can go and validate the calendar, can validate the travel times, the time required for said task or for said service to be rendered, and go ahead and book that all autonomously while this home care worker is tending to another patient, right? So all this can be done automatically through the power of AI. So these autonomous agents are they are the future. That is really what Microsoft is going towards. It is an agent for every task, and everyone will have their assistant who will then be able to trigger said agents. And in many cases, this can even be autonomous agents. But wait, there's more. So there's always a lot more. The agents are really, really cool. Your customers will absolutely take advantage. You as MSPs, I would implore you to give it a swing. Go and try. You can build them right in Teams. You can have one spun up for yourself in a matter of seconds or minutes. There are agents that Microsoft has published. These are the ones I'll speak to a little bit more. But things like a prompt coach, if you're trying to get that perfect prompt, you can use the prompt coach to say, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's my prompt. Where did I go wrong, or why am I not getting the output desired? And that agent will actually work with you to refine your prompt until you have it right. There's a writing coach. There is a career coach. If I say, hey, given my skill set and you see the flow of my work, where could I stand to be improved? To no shock to many of you, it would be to sit up more straight and be more formal and use bigger and fancier words. So not all of it's necessarily applicable, but that awareness is one that while I catch notions of it every now and then, well, it's nice to see it from someone who has no perceived bias with regards to me.
I've created my own agent as well that's unique to me. I've published it just for myself, and it's not shared throughout the organization, which I think is a big distinction. And I created one to test me on Microsoft content that prepares me for a new exam. So if I'm going to go write a new Microsoft certification that I want, I'm going to get my Copilot to spit out multiple choice questions and test me on that type of content, and then grade me and give me the links to the Microsoft Learn courses that I then need to follow up on if I didn't get a question right. So there's lots of different unique ways that you can utilize it. I'd encourage you to test out and try agents. If you have a Copilot for 365 license, you've got the ability to go create a personalized agent for yourself today.
And that's such a cool point. So first off, super cool app. Secondly, we're friends. You can share. I think I'd love something like that to play with. And third, this is just adding value. It's not an additional license. It isn't anything more to purchase or to necessarily be concerned about. But it is, hey, you already have this thing. So wherever your Copilot sale was, maybe you didn't have the right inspiration to be able to put forward. Well, now there's just more value, including the SharePoint Advanced Management we discussed earlier. Well, that was just more value in this Copilot license. So it's not this this AI assistant in the way you work, but it is a customized and a personalized agent for each of your employees as well. For you as MSPs, as stewards again of this new world, there are opportunities for you here, whether that be to build, to publish, to train, work on enablement, to help refine any of these agents that your customers have built. Well, then by all means, this is really impactful work that you get to be a part of, and entirely billable, right? So when we say there's more money to Copilot than the license itself, adding value, being that difference maker, essentially is what we're able to look at. And then I kind of touched on it there, but is this agent delivering as expected? Go back and help them refine it, add an action, maybe authenticate an external user if it's published elsewhere through a site or what have you, but go back and make sure they're getting the most out of their individual agent experience. And again, if we're going to go on a one-by-one or a team, well, now you're going to get to triple, quadruple dip into this same agent enablement session that you'll be able to offer. So again, think of it more than the tree, and really get into the forest here. And finally, just because along with our Copilot quota, how many times you have to say it in a day, The security component is not to be neglected. All of this can also be put in place, additional tools, again, available to you and ourselves, right? So we offer, we have Mike as a service, we have Sam as a service, but we have our experts in-house that can help to guide you there, and even looping in Microsoft for any of the holistic, I need to get off of vendor X and consolidate, streamline your operations with regards to security by leveraging the full Microsoft set. Well, by all means, there's no shortage of expertise or resources that we can either provide or point you towards at a very minimum. Nice.
All right. So that's everything we've talked about with the agents is still within the Microsoft space, within the Microsoft applications, creating things within your chatbot. Now we're going to talk a little bit about plugins and then connectors. So this is really extending the Microsoft 365 Copilot experience. And you can see here that at the bottom left-hand corner, you've got your large language model, essentially a chat bot. And then you've got kind of the next step, Copilot for Microsoft 365, embedding it into your applications, leveraging both company data and the internet, which is that core offering of Microsoft 365 Copilot. But then the extension of that is bringing in that third-party data. It's one of the questions I get right after the security question is, okay, it's great, but not all of my information resides within SharePoint. Not all of it resides within OneDrive. How do I get access to my HR platform? How do I leverage CRM data that isn't within Dynamics within Copilot and get my assistant to query against that? And that's where plugins and the connectors come in. So the first one that we're going to talk about is plugins. So plugins are a two-way street. The way to think of it is a read-write connection of your data that is a predefined and built plugin for that solution into Copilot. So with that, you've got the ability to pull in that information, leverage it, and then affect it in its home environment through Copilot. So this is updating and creating CRM opportunities. This is identifying and then booking vacation through an agent. And this is all accessible through Teams. If you're looking at your Copilot for Teams, you would go and click the plugin option within your Teams environment, and there's going to be predefined, pre-canned, already created plugins for quite a lot of SaaS applications. Like we stopped quoting the number because every time we do it, it's out of date. They're adding them constantly. So there are a ton of pre-built plugins for SaaS applications that then ingest, and you can affect your data from your large language model, from your Copilot assistant. So this is a really powerful tool set. I absolutely love it. We've got the 365 chat, just as I discussed there. So we've got a bit of a video to show you kind of the power of that here.
Well, it is definitely my first time using Teams, so I shared without audio. So I will put my screen down and put it right back up here. My sincerest apologies.
That's all right. Happens to the best of us, James.
Includes sound. I'm allowed one mulligan a day. Without further ado, let's hear from our friends at Microsoft.
Microsoft 365 Chat supports external plugins, enabling users to connect to external tools without switching apps. Let's say you need to book a trip. You can do all of that with just your own words. You want to match the itinerary of a colleague. M365 Chat can pull those details directly from an email they sent you. You can then ask it to help you book the same itinerary. Here it uses the Citric Easy App plugin from Amadeus, which makes booking travel a breeze. It generates an itinerary for you, where you can select from other flights or view the final details to confirm the specifics of the trip before purchasing. Simply click Book, and you're done. M365 Chat supports third-party plugins from any data source, so you can stay in your flow of work without needing to switch applications.
Yeah, and super cool here. And as I'm listening to that, I'm just watching, and obviously, really interesting use case. Also interesting from an opportunities perspective for you slash us. I don't know if just anyone should be able to just book flights that easily, right? So setting up these
Yes,
parameters, these conditions.
it will inherit the if you've got SSO enabled for that application, it will inherit the same permission sets. So you don't need to worry about configuring and dealing with permission sets that then come over into 365 if you're SSO for that particular application. So that's also a good point. We've got the ability to create custom ones as well. It's not just the predefined ones that you have with Microsoft or the ones that these SaaS applications are creating. You can create your own kind of, as long as there's like a REST API, you've got the ability to create that plugin, that custom connector, if you will. And it's actually, as we get to connectors, to bring in data that isn't already part of that predefined set. So this is where there's a ton. This is the read-only version, if you will, of bringing your data in so that it can be queried against for Microsoft Copilot. This is where you're going to have a ton of powerful stuff that you can do for your customers. Also internally, I've talked about it at every show that I've done, is being able to give the power of your IT documentation to all of your IT staff. So if you were to pull in your IT documentation, it is now from IT Glue or another tool set. You could then query against it live. This is going to be a game changer for those that are looking for their how-to documents and step-by-steps, those that are doing scoping and want to understand better what exists in an environment today. If you're scoping a new project, there is a ton of use for this. Another one would be ingesting your PSA and ticket data so that you've got your support staff that can look up, hey, when was the last time this happened for this customer in natural language, and then get a return and say, okay, what was the solution? What were the steps that were taken to resolve this? And it's going to query all that information, assuming that that information was put into the ticket. You have good ticket hygiene. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I know that's not an issue for any of you here. Then your IT staff will be able to get that information out of their Copilot just by querying against it. And obviously, what that means is you're going to have faster time to resolution. Your techs are going to be super powered. I know I had at the MSP that I was working at, we had one agent that was working with the help of AI in this manner, and he was closing 150% of the tickets that his peer was right beside him that decided he didn't want to use AI. It was incredible to see his workload go through the roof. The scalability by bringing in this data was incredible, and that's really where the benefit lies. Is really just bringing it back to that. The more data you can bring into the Microsoft Graph, means the more you're going to be able to utilize Copilot across the board.
Super cool. Yes, this is one that again we have some ambitions even here internally, whether that be through plugins and agents even. But yeah, the use cases are near infinite here and how this can all be applied. And last but not least, Copilot Studio. This is the do-it-yourself Copilot arm, if as it were. So what's really fun with Studio is that generally this will be a tenant wide service functionality. It can also be external facing or to be used internally, as you can assign and delegate some pretty specific permissions. But essentially the ability to create your own. So again, my Copilot for Copilot is an agent that I've deployed to myself. But this is one that at a certain point in time, we'd encourage any of you to go about doing this yourself. In a perfect world, I see this as a partner facing slash internal facing tool, absolutely as well. But hey, this is my customer scenario. Here are the most topical issues or their concerns or their most dearest ambitions, and then pair this with insert product line or insert profit margin desired or services wrapped around it, to help you kind of have that, not saying an account mapping, but really a strategy as you go and approach it. It can leverage terminology from that person's industry or field. So really, it's limitless again in terms of the potential here. Very self-centered examples I'm giving here, but this can be applicable through manufacturing, through financial field in terms of spotting anomalies again. So so many.
Sure and just to highlight the difference between personal agent and Copilot Studio. So Copilot Agent is going to be specific to you. When we say it gets published to you. You can use it in your team's application. The Copilot Studio version is similar to an agent, but it gets given to the entire tenant. So this is a different licensing model. You buy a Copilot Studio tenant license and then give access across the entire tenant to your staff to be able to access and utilize this agent. This is at a lower cost than deploying it to an entire company, depending on the size. So this is the Copilot Studio license might be is $300 a month in USD, and it's going to be leveraged across the entire environment, so everybody within the organization can use it for that purpose-driven reason or for that agent. As an account manager, previously, when I would sell this and I would be talking to large organizations about Copilot, I would actually lead with Copilot Studio at times because I could get them a taste of Copilot. I could get them a taste of what it could do, what an agent could do before deploying it 365 Copilot license to every user in the organization. And that worked very well. We'd end up with some great opportunities getting our foot in the door with Copilot Studio.
Right, because that's it. When it comes to AI, and it can do so much, and we can consume all the YouTube we could dream of, or all the Ignite sessions, but making it real, right? It's a big part of the challenge when it comes to IT sales, or kind of just again convincing or really putting that value in front of the customer. Well, now it is, hey, your HR team, they're overwhelmed and they're 3 weeks behind. Well, how about I make a Copilot for that? And this may turn into an HR, it may be a commission or revenue ops, but you can make these purpose-built individual, and to your point, Mike, these kind of snippet Copilots that are very focused, that have a reach that can scale across the organization. And then we say, well, wow, if AI was able to reduce my HR intake or my IT and internal support teams intake, well, just imagine what it can do in the entirety of my day-to-day if we start integrating it into my Outlook, my Teams, my Excel, and so on. So again, a really great starting point. The price, again, is not to say more forgiving, because I really believe in the value of Copilot for 365, but it is a kind of a try before you buy with a lesser investment. So again, if you have a sleepless night, if your kids are gone on a Saturday and you just have some time to kill, or even really to invest as part of your own work life here, do get a chance to play with Copilot Studio. There's one YouTube follow there, no affiliation, although admin to your channel. Lisa Crosby has been amazing. She's one that I follow, who does quite a lot around agents and Copilot Studio. She's a Microsoft MVP, but she's outstanding. I find her explanations really in depth and her demos to be logical. But again, this is regardless of sector, regardless of the task. It could just be to automate approvals, to generate leads, to potentially highlight or to surface warmer or hotter leads that come in. So you name it in your sector and the customer sector more so. There is a Copilot Studio application to be developed. It's just a question of expanding our own minds and really getting into the customer state of mind, what makes them tick, what makes where the bubble is, so to speak, and then how you can go about simplifying their day or removing that pain or that repetitive, that redundant task. Well, how can we get workers to focus on what moves the needle more? And Copilot Studio and / Copilot could be some of those ways.
Yeah, there's lots of industry solutions here that are pre-canned. If you go to the link, that aka.ms/Copilot Studio, there's lots of industry-specific examples that you can see that integrate in the applications with logos below. So there's definitely a lot of options that somebody has already tried, somebody's done it, and you can take a look at how they function. Same with departments, whether that's sales and marketing, operations, IT, job function, same thing. You'll be able to delineate whether it's industry or job role focused there and see how people are utilizing it today.
And again, there's so many cool things about Copilot Studio. I think one of them that I was playing with just as recently as yesterday is asking Copilot within Copilot Studio to develop this app for you. Like it'll go ahead and develop the actions and decide on the topics based on the information that you requested or the instructions that you give. So you don't necessarily need to be a programmer. One thing that I think would be astute of all of us here is to get away from the break fix, "Oh, doctor, this hurts," and then you being the doctor and providing the right meds or exercise, etc. But really getting into the, well, how can we avoid this going forward? It's not just fixing the bad knee, but really, okay, well, how can we work on your exercise? What is exercise going to be like for you? What is your meal plan prep? But really preventative, right? So getting ahead, understanding where it hurts, and find an opportunity. I think for all of us to start to be more business consultants as opposed to break fix is gonna serve us all very well, because there isn't going to be a million things to fix coming up in 10 years. It'll really be, well, who has been a part of my success for the past 10? And this is where getting into the customer's mindset, what makes them tick, and meeting them with their ambitions and providing their resources to go forward. I think this is really the difference between what was and what will be with AI.
Yeah. Exciting times. All right. So we went through agents, personalized agents, adding value to your existing subscription, the difference between plugins and connectors, and how you can extend Copilot beyond just the Microsoft data, and then going into Copilot Studio, how you can create tenant-wide, laser-pointed use cases for Copilot and AI to be leveraged for an entire organization. Hopefully that provided some clarity for those that had heard about them but didn't know the details. And I know we've got, we'll happily go through one-on-ones with people if they want to learn more about it, understand it, and see where the opportunity lies with their customers.
Yeah, and again, just kind of bring it full circle here. If we go back to the revenue potential for what concerns Copilot, so again, through agents, connectors, or studios, we have up on the screen here. It is what you make of it, right? And it's how scalable you can be. So leverage Copilot internally to increase your efficiency, to reduce costs where applicable, and to come up with better content, better support, better collateral. I think what's really fun, if I think of the scalability, for many of these, you can export and then simply replicate. So let's say you invest some time, you build an HR app or HR Copilot more so. Well, by all means, that one-time dev cost that you're going to have put out there for your initial customer, for customer zero, if it were, well, then you can now go and say, hey, I have this HR Copilot. It's going to take me 10 hours to develop a custom one just for you. And meanwhile, you have the topics figured out, you have the actions all mapped. And all you're going to do is update the knowledge sources to be for that particular customer. Call it an hour, call it two if we go get a coffee. But now you're billing for 10 hours. The workload is two, and the more proficient you get at that rinse and repeat cycle, that's going to drive down to half an hour, as you can definitely get an agent to help you automate even parts of that, right? So this is where I think we really want to focus on you leveraging it, you optimizing what you're doing, and being able to pull more or do more with less, as Microsoft would have said in last year's marketing campaigns. So you will get all of these links. So do be patient here with us. We'll get this over generally in the next week or so. Some of the articles from Microsoft Ignite, a word from Scott done this one year or so, or a few times now, let's say, go and register for Ignite. Even if you don't attend all the sessions, right? It's unrealistic, at least in my role, to think I'd have 3 days carved out to attend some event. We understand time constraints and fires and everyone wearing 14 hats. So just register. You can often go back and download their on-demand content. You can always consume a lot of the sessions there as well on demand. So just to keep yourself informed there, we'll do our best via Cumulus and push notifications that way, emails as well. We try not to over solicit, but we do try and keep you informed. So do ensure we have the right contact info for you. Again, we don't over solicit there. It's a very mindful approach we take in sharing that news. More news around agents or notes or getting started. We think of learn documentation. Similarly for plugins, connectors, and Copilot Studio, as are many things in our field. Try them out, right? This is going to be as useful. You'll know where it's not as intuitive as Microsoft says it is, and you'll know what to focus and study on. But really going through it and building an agent, again, it could be 3 minutes. You can quite easily have a basic agent set up for yourself there and leverage internally and just brainstorm with your team or even with us.
Yeah, we've also got lots of good resources upcoming. We've got a webinar coming with our very own James here that is talking about Microsoft Teams voice solutions. So if you've got interest or you're stepping into that telephony zone, that's going to be a great resource for you that you're going to want to register for. Great revenue opportunity as well. The deployment for Copilot, and we're going to talk about that in 1 second. And then we've got some resources on how MSPs can leverage AI and our security toolkits. So that's also resources at your disposal. But as we move to the next portion, if all of this seems like you've got interest from your customers, you're not quite there yet in terms of delivering these services to your customers, we can do it for you with different Copilot professional services offerings, whether that's the Art of Possible workshops, building a pilot project for your customers, or a full end-to-end Copilot deployment, or end user and adoption training. We have different customizable services that we can work with you on and your customer to help deliver some of this for you. So leverage our expertise for your customers. If they're asking for it now and you're not quite prepared, don't turn them away and give them to someone that will help them. We'll do it on your behalf and work with you to engage with your customer and deploy Copilot in whatever need this customer might have.
Yeah, and maybe one more note on the professional services. So this year, as well. So we definitely listen, right? Any of the feedback you provide to your account managers or point of contacts here at Sherweb, I can assure you a very, very large majority does go up the proverbial totem pole here, and our team is listening. We are applying to action. This is where this offer was devised. We're also looking to support you. Again, it's a white label behind the scenes for what concerns some of your security setups. So updating or helping work on that secure score, for example. Intune deployments, AVD is something that we're quite proficient at as is. But more and more, we want to help deliver. We understand, again, staffing resources and the market being what it is there. So do more with less. Again, leverage us. We want to be that proverbial Copilot. Darn it, James. I don't want to say that out loud. But we just want to be a part of your success. Simply, we're trying to develop new offers with that in mind. So keep us honest. Ask us for what could be missing or where you're stuck, where you're struggling a little bit. And again, we have some pretty cool people internally, really good friends at Microsoft as well. So we're all in here, so to speak, and we're willing to invest and support wherever we can. That is largely it for today. We'll jump into the Q&A. There was one, so that means we're super clear and there is zero gray in what we do. So Mike, virtual high five. I don't know what side Teams is putting us on here, but virtual high fives. There was one. It was around the 15% discount for the M365 E5. This was for net new customers. Do existing customers that don't yet have M365 E5 qualify? Yes is the assumption, unless Mike, I don't know if you say anything recent.
Yeah, that's correct. The promotion is going to be for clients that have not purchased an E5 in that organization's tenant today. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the upgrades will be there. And then maybe a follow-up, as I could put my own Q&A in there, would be something we'll know more about in the next couple of weeks here. Will be that if a customer has existing E5s and they were then to upgrade some E3s, or the balance of their E3s into E5s, if they would qualify, often these are net new.
Yeah, it'll be net new. It also has to be, it's first purchase only, and it's got to be annual term or annual term monthly bill for the licenses.
Awesome. So that was for you, Reza. There, we'll reach out or reach out, ping Sam, Mike, or myself here. We'll dive into that one. Otherwise, and we're exactly on time. Thank you all for your time again, having made this investment, and hopefully there's 3 to 5 takeaways here for you. And again, share some feedback as you have it.
Thank you very much.